Cosplay. Perhaps the most glamorous aspect of the anime fandom. It's wonderful, but also a sensitive topic for many. Not me, though. Still, let's all be respectful. Welcome back to Otaku Daikun. Dai here. Today I want to talk about cosplay. I love cosplay, but it's a pretty broad aspect of the fandom that draws in folks for all sorts of reasons. Because of that, there's a bit of infighting, and a hefty amount of drama to go around. Thankfully, I'm not covering that drama today, but rather diving into a bit of the philosophy of cosplay, which I believe often ruffles some feathers. Before that though, I need to reiterate one thing. Cosplay is for fun. I don't care who you are, how talented you are, or what you think of cosplay. At the end of the day, the most important part is that fans are enjoying themselves. I believe it's quite possible to discuss sensitive topics in cosplay without breeding the kind of toxicity that plagues our fandom. Cosplay should never be an excuse or avenue for hatred and disrespect. If there's a personal issue involved, keep it to that, and even then, be civil. This applies to the cosplayers and their spectators alike. Alright, back to the topic. I personally got into an argument on Facebook over this shared snippet from Twitter. It shall serve as the root of today's discussion. Y'all only appreciate stereotypically pretty cosplayers with huge bazongas. Y'all don't give a crap of craft no more. Dark-skinned, plus-size cosplayers have to work thrice as hard as everyone else. But no one wants to hear that. The assertion here is that people don't really care about the craft of cosplay, treating it as an opportunity to see attractive models. It's rather accusatory, claiming that the real reason we like certain cosplays is because the models are hot, and we aren't concerned with the outfits themselves. The post's attitude is insulting, particularly to passionate cosplayers who also happen to be attractive. That said, I can understand where the post is coming from. If you're not conventionally attractive, even if you're an amazing craftsman, your work can be overlooked, giving an advantage to those cosplayers who are attractive. The issue here is that the post is blaming the general public and making a false assumption about them. If we really want to discuss why attractive cosplayers steal the spotlight, at least online, we need to ask ourselves as a community just what the purpose of cosplay is. After a lot of thought, I noticed that there are two prevalent paradigms to this issue. Two forms of thought that, while they're not mutually exclusive, are nonetheless polarizing. These are cosplay in service to oneself and cosplay in service to the source. Imagine these two extremes as circles on a Venn diagram. I'd say most people fall in between them, as it's the most reasonable. But these extremes fuel an internal fire in our fandom nonetheless. On the left, we have service to the self, which asserts the whole point of cosplay is to enjoy yourself. So long as you like cosplaying, for whatever reason you wish, what other people think of you isn't important in the slightest, regardless of how accurate or not the end product is. This is where diversity in cosplay comes from, what makes cosplay accessible to everyone. Let's be honest, the vast majority of all anime characters are young, healthy, fit, and white. The girls are slim, and the guys are often really beautiful or really muscular. I can't speak for everyone, but that's one of the key reasons I love anime. Well, not necessarily the racial part, but the general emphasis on youthful beauty. Anime characters are so insanely gorgeous that no reality can fully capture them. It's a fantasy aesthetic that many people fail to match in appearance, behavior, or personality. But for many, that's not the point. In these cases, it's all about bringing the character to you, taking the things that you like about them, and adapting them to your unique features. Just because a character is petite, that doesn't mean a large person can't relate to them in some form or another. I, for one, have said on this channel that my favorite characters are all female, and that I relate to them more than male characters. If I want to cosplay a female character, there shouldn't be anything to stop me, even though I have way too many masculine traits to pull it off visually. In my case, I was lucky enough to have a similar male version of Artoria, allowing me to at least get close to cosplaying the King of Knights as I know her. What if you're black? Does that mean you shouldn't be able to cosplay all those white anime characters? No. Heck no. It would be incredibly insensitive and racist to try and change your own skin to match another race. So the socially acceptable route is just to be yourself and wear the outfit. At the local conventions I attend, one of the most popular cosplayers around is a talented woman who's cosplayed Matori Ryuko, Sailor Moon, and even one of the gems from Hoseki no Kuni. Sure, her skin doesn't match those characters, but that's only one variable of many that make up a cosplay, and she rocks the others. Obviously, the same goes for white folks cosplaying black or dark-skinned characters. Nobody wants you to go blackface. Even under the most innocent of intentions, it's offensive. If you really want to cosplay Barret, but you're a white guy, go for it. Be a white Barret. You're expressing yourself through the character. A healthy cosplay community should encourage this sort of thing, and it's thanks to cosplay in service of the self that the craft is as accessible as it is. On the other end of the diagram, however, is cosplay in service of the source. It's the exact opposite mentality, and believe it or not, it's not as sinful as many would claim. According to this mentality, the most important thing, the magic of cosplay, is bringing the characters to life as believably as possible. The goal is recognizability, for someone familiar with the character to spot you from the end of a room and immediately know who you're cosplaying. In that endeavor, every part of you, both costume and body, are important parts of the cosplay. I don't blame anyone for viewing cosplay this way. If I'm a spectator, I too want to see my favorite characters brought to life. I might not be interested in someone else's interpretation of the character, or a cosplay loosely inspired by the character, with too many creative alterations. It's a bittersweet mentality for sure, as it does prevent people from dressing as characters they don't actually look like, but in some ways it can be that much more impressive. Understandably, you can't very well change your genetics. As a guy, you might not be androgynous enough to play a female character accurately. If you're not the same race as the character, you can't help it. Even if it's a matter of weight, the life of someone who spends their time sewing clothes and building armor doesn't necessarily lend itself to working out. To have what resembles an anime body can sometimes require a very specific and dedicated lifestyle that not everyone's going to be able to commit to. Thus, pulling off a visually accurate cosplay might require teamwork. I always appreciate when a craftsman is willing to team up with a model to bring us the best of both worlds. One person who fits the casting can dedicate their time to getting the right body and mannerisms required of the character, while the other dedicates their time to painstakingly crafting the costume. Even beyond that, the best cosplays I've ever seen need the help of not only the cosplayer, but a photographer and a graphic artist to visibly enhance a photo. It's a lot like how Hollywood approaches its superhero movies. Gal Gadot, to prepare for her role as Wonder Woman, underwent physical training to more closely embody the character. She was already very attractive, meaning that attractiveness in itself isn't the goal. To sell the illusion of Wonder Woman, she had to consider her physique and abilities. Some people take their cosplay just as seriously. This brings me to admit something that most cosplayers frequently avoid, that the human body is a costume component. If cosplay is more than just a costume, then surely one's physical fitness can serve as a form of expression. It's a tad meta, but look at Dumbbell Nankiro Moteru, in which the anime's teacher busts her ass off at the gym to better her cosplay modeling at Comiket. She's willing to work extra hard, not only on her costumes, but also her own physique as a form of expressing the character she cosplays. The same goes for men. In that same episode, their workout trainer cosplays a parody of Fist of the North Star, which attracts fans of the character even after he tears his clothes off because of how important muscles are to the character in question. My unpopular opinion is that, in terms of cosplay craftsmanship, a cosplayer who gets fit and buys their costume, or does a poor job sewing, is just as impressive as a plus-sized cosplayer with pristine clothing. In other words, the performer's body is part of the craft. Mordred from Fate Apocrypha has abs, and abs are something you have to work for. Thus, I value any Mordred cosplayer who puts in the effort to get those abs. The toning of their body, to me, is just as important a detail as the quality of the seams used on her clothing, or the type of painting applied to her armor. Whenever I see cosplay contests, the Masters category winners always tend to be those with the most elaborate and detailed outfits. But honestly, one of the most impressive cosplays I've ever seen was Sora from Kingdom Hearts. The cosplayer was in the intermediate category, and Sora's outfit isn't even the most extreme to pull off, but they walked up on stage and joyfully hopped into a set of poses with the same mannerisms one would see from a Mickey Mouse cartoon. It made me think, holy crap, Sora really just walked on stage. This was no doubt a major factor in the fact that they won the intermediate category. But if I were a judge, that cosplay may very well have won Best in Show. More recently, I walked up to a woman at a convention cosplaying Yang from Ruby and asked to film her doing some fighting moves. With the exact same confidence and sass as the character, she threw some great kicks at the camera and truly brought Yang to life. She became Yang, which wouldn't have been possible without the physique and experience to actually throw those kicks. Let's look at the character Deku from My Hero Academia. Going from zero to hero is literally his character arc. He starts out without powers, as a scrawny little kid. Even after inheriting All Might's quirk, he still has to earn it by working his ass off hauling junk off the beach. Bodybuilding is very much a part of who he is. Some cosplayers express themselves by going through similar training. A friend of mine, Saber Grove, does just that. Inspired by characters like Deku, Saber works out and his efforts show in his cosplays. This is in addition to his brilliant work with armor and masks. It's a rarity when a cosplayer like him can embody a character on so many levels. There's a lot of gatekeeping in the community around attractive cosplayers being accused of abusing the fandom for their own exhibitionism. It happens mostly with women, when people question whether a woman is actually a nerd or has any genuine interest in the character they're cosplaying. It's like women have to prove their right to be a part of the fandom, and that's just ridiculous. Sure, the more hardcore the anime fan, the more likely they are to be a couch potato who spends their time binging anime and games, suggesting an inactive lifestyle. Such people are less likely to be conventionally attractive, creating a false assumption that the more obese and unhealthy an anime fan looks, the more hardcore they are about the fandom. That's where the mentality comes from, but again, that's just cruel gatekeeping. Someone who lives a more healthy lifestyle, limiting their anime to just a handful of shows, is still just as much a fan as someone with a vast library of series under their belt. It's silly to assume that people with more active lifestyles can't find ways to appreciate anime. For many, fitness is a ticket into the fandom, such as bodybuilders who get into Dragon Ball Z. Their connection with the show might be different than a devoted otaku's, but that doesn't make it any less valid. That said, even if it's definitively proven that an attractive cosplayer doesn't like or know jack about anime and is just using it as an excuse to dress provocatively, that doesn't invalidate their cosplays either. The whole dogma behind cosplay inclusivity is to acknowledge that people have their own reasons for cosplaying. Just as you don't have to physically match the character in question to be able to have fun cosplaying them, someone who does look the part doesn't have to be an expert to have fun bringing other people's favorite characters to life. Dressing for attention is just as valid a reason to cosplay as any other. To reiterate, on one end we have a paradigm that values personal expression over accuracy. It claims that cosplay is just to have fun, and that accuracy is not a required component. It opens cosplay up to pretty much anyone, regardless of age, gender, body, or ethnicity, granting them full creative freedom to interpret the characters as they see fit. While this is certainly valuable, it tends to result in cosplays that are less popular and less noticed. After all, if you're cosplaying solely for yourself, why would you expect anyone else to really care about it? On the other end is a paradigm that values bringing the characters to life as closely as possible. This infers doing whatever it takes to look, sound, and act like the character as you humanly can. It's a daunting task that might involve sacrifice, such as talented craftsmen having to team up with models so they can combine both the perfect costume with the perfect body. As a result, these cosplays tend to get a lot more attention, as anime fans can immediately recognize them and see their favorite characters in real life. Naturally, anime is filled with conventionally attractive people, and so more accurate cosplays will feature models with the same traits. Because these cosplays appeal to the larger fan community, rather than an act of self-pleasure, it's really no surprise that, at least on the internet, attractive or more visually accurate cosplays tend to dominate. Both mentalities are perfectly acceptable and equally demonstrative of passion for the craft. They just result in different levels of popularity and exposure. As I said before, the most reasonable conclusion is to find yourself in between the two extremes. It's not like inclusive, body-positive cosplayers don't care at all about the character's accuracy. There are some androgynous cosplayers who play the opposite sex with more precision than same-sex cosplayers. Using this philosophy, both plus-sized and conventionally attractive cosplayers have achieved success by branding themselves. People like Jessica Negri, for instance. Her cosplays are more about her than the characters. Like seriously, what's a sexy Pikachu gotta do with Pokemon lore? It's fetish material, but it's still valid since she and her fans are enjoying it. By the same token, it's not like all the gorgeous cosplay models aren't putting in effort to earn and maintain their bodies, which in itself can be an expressive component of a cosplay, and it's not like they don't actually care for the fandom at large either. Cosplay means different things to different people, and that's perfectly acceptable, assuming everyone remains supportive and respectful. Going back to that initial post, does appreciating attractive cosplayers include ignoring the hard work put into craftsmanship? Of course not. Many of these cosplayers put in just as much effort into their costumes, on top of maintaining their physical form. At the same time, it's not like dark skin or plus-sized cosplayers aren't working hard, obviously. But to assume that succeeding in fitness doesn't take a ton of effort is just insulting. No, the reason why conventionally attractive cosplayers get more attention isn't because the mass populace doesn't respect the craft of cosplay. The phenomena results from a clash between two different cosplay philosophies. If you make cosplay for yourself, no matter how hard you work on it, you may not be appealing to an entire group of people who look at cosplay in terms of accuracy. As we take this discussion to the comments, here are some questions to consider. What does cosplay mean to you? What aspect of a cosplay do you find most important? Is it one's body? Is it the fabrics used? Is it the props? Is it the wig and contacts, etc.? So long as it's properly disclosed, does it matter if a cosplay is store-bought or handmade? That said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to your opinions below. Thanks for watching! If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to Otaku Daikun, and most of all, smashing that notification bell as if it were your waifu. That way you'll never miss out on all of my anime content, lore videos, live streams, and Holy Waifu Wars polls. My vids are struggling to get featured, so that bell is absolutely critical. If you want to support me directly, check out my Patreon, or consider donating via Super Chat. And as always, celebrate your fandom.